All right, let's talk about confidence. We all want it. We're all chasing it. But today, we're not going to just skim the surface with things like believe in yourself. No, we're going way deeper. We're going to look at the actual architecture behind real, unshakable confidence.
I mean, it's something we're all after, right? You see it in other people, you admire it. It's this magnetic quality that seems to open doors and command respect. But here's the thing. What if the way most of us think about it is completely backwards?
So let's just chew on this for a second. What if that feeling we're all pursuing, the one we call confidence, is actually a trap? What if it's just a fragile imitation of the real deal, a counterfeit version that completely shatters the second it's put to a real test?
To get to the bottom of this, we actually have to start with the opposite of confidence. See, the source material for this explainer makes a really powerful point. Anxiety and insecurity, they aren't you. They're not some permanent character flaw. They're just symptoms of something much deeper going on under the hood.
And here's the crucial idea. That feeling of insecurity, it's your brain's alarm bell for a perceived loss of control, a loss of agency over your world. When you feel like life is just happening to you, instead of you actively navigating it, your brain sends up a flare. And that feeling, that's insecurity.
Okay, so this feeling of helplessness leads us right back to that counterfeit confidence we talked about, the kind that's built on a really fragile ego. Let's break down exactly how this happens. It's a three-step process, and it's way more common and way more dangerous than you might think. First, it starts out pretty harmlessly. You get really, really good at one specific thing. Could be your job, a video game, a certain hobby, whatever. You build this little comfort zone, this tiny kingdom where you are the absolute master. You're in control.
And then comes step 2. This is the trap. Your ego makes this enormous leap of faith. It takes that mastery in one tiny area and assumes it applies everywhere. It starts to think, hey, because I'm a king in this small castle, I must be ready to rule the whole world.
But then, of course, step 3 happens. Reality comes knocking. Life inevitably shoves you outside of that cozy comfort zone into something new, something hostile, something you don't know. And bam, that's what the source calls a violent psychological collision. Your overblown ego smashes headfirst into the brick wall of your actual limited abilities. And look at the difference in how people react in that moment. The fragile ego, it just panics. It gets defensive, starts deflecting blame. Basically, it just closes its eyes and hopes for the best. But true competence, it's calm. It assesses the situation, calculates the gap, and then it executes a plan. We're talking about two completely different operating systems here.
When that fragile ego is threatened, it deploys all these coping mechanisms. You see things like irrational defensiveness, people lashing out to protect their little bubble. Or, these bizarre avoidance tactics like sticking your head in the sand. Then there's that unearned arrogance that's really just a mask for fear. And sometimes, even self-sabotage, because failing on your own terms feels safer than being exposed.
Okay, so if the fragile ego is the problem, what's the solution? Well, we have to completely change our focus. The path to genuine, unshakable confidence isn't about puffing yourself up. It's about building something real.
The answer is competence. Objective, reality-tested, hard-won competence. This is a kind of confidence that doesn't have to be loud or braggy, because it's grounded in a brutally honest understanding of what you can actually do. It's been tested again and again in the real world.
So what does this look like in practice? When someone with this kind of foundation is thrown into that same new, challenging environment that makes the fragile ego panic, what do?
They don't freak out. They don't posture. They just calmly calculate the gap. They look at the challenge, they look at their own skill set, and they ask a simple question. Okay, what precisely do I need to learn or do to win here? It turns an emotional crisis into a simple math problem.
All right, so let's get practical. Let's talk about the blueprint for building this kind of agency. Because let's be real, nobody is born competent. You might have some natural talent, sure, but that's just starting capital. Real capability is built through a structured, deliberate process.
A key milestone on this journey is what the source material calls the minimum competency level. Think of this as the sweet spot. It's that point where your skill has actual real-world value. You're good enough that the average person is impressed, you could maybe start charging money for it, or you could teach a total beginner the basics.
So how long does that take? Well, we get a ballpark number, somewhere between 600 and 2,000 hours of focused work. And yeah, I know, that number sounds huge. There are no shortcuts here.
But a competent person doesn't see a giant mountain they have to climb tomorrow. They understand the incredible power of just chipping away at it day after day.
Especially for adults, getting there requires a real shift in mindset. You have to stop thinking in terms of weeks and start thinking in terms of years, even decades. You commit to a daily practice, and you have to make a trade. You give up that desperate need for instant gratification in exchange for the slow, quiet, but absolutely inevitable growth that comes from consistency.
And listen, because your time is precious, you've got to be strategic about what skills you build. The source points to foundational skills, things like math and the sciences. Why? Because they act as cognitive multipliers. They basically forge a new kind of logic in your brain that makes learning everything else way, way faster. But here's a really cool part of all this. This whole journey of mastery, it's not something you do alone in a cave. In fact, pursuing competence is one of the best ways to build deep, meaningful connections with other people. The reward isn't just the skill, it's so much bigger than that.
I mean, the ultimate rewards here are life-changing. You build these incredible bonds with mentors and peers who are on the same path. You gain the actual ability to help the people you care about. Over time, you don't just learn a skill, you learn the process of navigating the world itself. And that anxiety, that fear of the unknown, it gets replaced by the quiet, unshakable confidence of knowing you can execute.
This quote just sums it all up so perfectly. Intelligence can analyze a situation, but only hard-won skills, steadfast patience, and connection with others can conquer it. See, being smart can help you understand the problem, but it's not enough to win. Winning takes skill, it takes patience, and it takes people.
So that leaves us with one final question for you to think about. What kind of architecture are you going to build? Are you going to keep patching together a fragile facade, just hoping the wind doesn't blow too hard? Or are you going to do the patient, difficult work of laying a real foundation, building an architecture of competence that can withstand any storm life throws at you? The choice really is yours.